Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, very, very good question.
Yeah, this is a very good question.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question.
Oh, that's a great question.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Zanger.
It's a great question.
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Really good question.
Gosh, this question to me, I hate this question.
That's a loaded question. But okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your support of Indie Agency. I got to put the fancy music up on this. Keep forgetting about this. Oh my goodness. All right. First off, thank you for your support of Indie Agency News, especially our members. The brief is very simple: build the global home for independent agencies. The mission: serve independent agencies and the brilliant people behind them. And our goal is more visibility for indies and more choice for marketers, because there are a lot of great indies out there, including one of our great members at Oberland. We bring Lisa Topol in today.
Hello, everyone.
And then we also bring in Melinda. Oh, I can't wait to talk about this one. Melinda, did you know what you were getting into with this agency?
I believe we did. Look, E.L.F. prides itself on being a bold disruptor with a kind heart, and Oberland aligns perfectly with that persona. And so we could not be more thrilled to team up with them for changing the board game.
Yes, and you're being very diplomatic in saying this. So I'm gonna put this up first. Oh my goodness, this brilliant. We're talking about change the board game, and then the creative way into this is so many dicks.
So
many. I'm glad to see Aaron Eckhart getting some work here. Look at this.
It is technically not Aaron Eckhart.
I know it, but it looks like it.
It's I'll jumping in for 2 seconds, but those are all AI found images. When we put in find a typical corporate boardroom member, we got a whole bunch of these guys.
Yeah, this one's over here. This one's got a little John Hamm going.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's this is so funny. It's so funny. And then the thing about this is, a lot of times when we do things like this, there is I can't believe, like the initial piece of it of going, oh my gosh, that's so great. A lot of times people move on from that though, and they don't stick in and really dig into what the main purpose of this is. And this is the opposite of people moving away from it. Just from what I've seen, what I've read, so much great coverage. People were really digging into this in a way to really understand what E.L.F. was doing here. So let's start with the brief, and then move into the journey, the strategic journey, and then into the creative execution. So let's start with the brief. What, Melinda, from your side, what was the brief from the
since
side?
I created the brief. The brief really the brief started with the facts. Right. And the facts are that E.L.F. Beauty is one in only 4 companies out of 4,200 publicly traded companies with a board of directors that's 2/3 women and 1/3 diverse. And we believe very strongly that the diversity of our board leads to business success. Right now we have 21 consecutive quarters of net sales growth. And we are, one of the top performing beauty companies, but as proud of we are of that stat, we actually want there to be more than 4 companies. And so we went to Oberland, and the task was really, this is the stat. How do we get people in companies to A, care about it, and B, pay attention to it? And at first it started as more of a B2B idea. And then we realized that as a company that prides itself on being purpose-led, we believe that this is something that is so part of our DNA that we actually wanted anyone, every eye, lip, and face to care about it as passionate as we can care about it, and to ultimately change the board game. So that was the brief. How do we get people to care about this?
Yeah, and Lisa, when you get a brief that's juicy like this,
Yep.
there are usually a couple schools of thought. Number one is, oh wow, what are we going to do with this? And then there's the other side of it of, oh wow, there's a million things we can do with this. I know that having known you for a while, that you're in the latter camp. I'm curious about what the reaction was from you and your team when this first landed.
You know, it's really interesting. First, well, thank you, Melinda, and thank you to the whole team at E.L.F, because this is the reason I went into purpose-led advertising. And so often you get briefs like this, but the company that's giving you that brief doesn't really walk the walk and talk the talk. And so just starting from that point, which is E.L.F actually means what it says. It does what it says. And so I think for us, that put us in a very advantageous situation and a very good situation, which is we don't have to make things up. We don't have to be cute around things. This is for real. E.L.F for real has a diverse board that is, like Melinda said, only 4 out of 4,200 can share those numbers. But I think that the challenge for us was, it's really important. And I would say, especially right now, I mean, even in the past few weeks, the notion of diversity or DEI has become the hot topic, right? Even with our election. And so talking about this and talking about the importance of what diversity can do for your company in terms of profitability, in terms of knowledge, in terms of technologies or insights that you can learn was super important. However, it's also a brief when you get it and you look at it and you see numbers like 2/3, 1/3, 4,200, 4, and you go, those are a lot of stats. It's a lot of numbers. And as important as this message is, and it's a board of directors, which is another thing that a lot of people, especially younger people, don't even know what it is or why it matters. So it was incredibly intriguing and incredibly important to us, but to a lot of the public, it was very likely that it would just flash by them. And stats don't tend to do that. Even if the stats are shocking, they don't tend to stop people. They don't tend to get people talking. So for us, it was, how do we take these numbers and turn them into something that people can't turn away from, and that might make them think about a topic they didn't think mattered to them or they didn't think was important to them. And it's a great challenge that certainly any creative can get, but even more to the point, I really want to change the board game, and so does everybody at Oberland and everybody at E.L.F. So you have this sort of personal mission of wanting to do something about this, and having that sort of added incentive makes you work real hard.
Yeah.
I think is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's such a great point about stats. And what is the device that illuminates the stat? And knowing E.L.F. and knowing Oberland, this was not going to be something that people could ignore.
Yeah.
for sure. So now we've landed on the brief. And so how did we get into the strategy, but also then, oh, hey, here's this insight, which then leads to a creative device, which then leads to something brilliant. So where did we land on strategy?
I'll jump in for a sec, Melinda, and then, yeah, it was really interesting because we're sitting with the numbers, looking at the numbers. And, when I said to you, stats are boring and numbers are boring, that tends to be true. So the challenge for us is, how do I humanize them and how do I personalize them, right? How do I make them something that you could feel, a number that you can feel? And just in doing our research, our strategists actually mentioned to the creative team a study that was done in the New York Times, and I believe it was in 2014. And it talked about how men named John, CEOs named John, outnumber all women. and then they redid the study in 2023. And they found that the progress was like nothing. It's teeny, like women finally outnumbered John, but by the smallest amount. And I think it made all of us realize, when I read that, certainly, I was like, God, now I get it. Like, now I can feel it and I can see it. It's a guy against all women. It started to have emotion and shock and feeling to it. And then, having that in mind, I was looking on the E.L.F's board of directors, and there happens to be a man named Richard on their board of directors, which, by the way, speaks to the fact of inclusivity, because E.L.F's board of directors has everyone on it. It's got white men. It's got black, like it's got everyone. It is, in fact, truly diverse. And that's when I thought, that's interesting. I wonder if there are more Richards, Ricks, or Dicks on boards than there are other entire groups of people, or women, or underrepresented groups. And that's really what got us thinking about it. And and the truth is, we didn't know the answer to that question either. Right. So that started to lead to the research. But that's really where the idea came from. And I thought, man, if there are more Dicks than there are Hispanic women by any name, that is a message I think people will stop and listen to and understand and even empathize with, and realize how far we have to go. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like a number. It feels like a real issue that we have to fix.
Right. Melinda.
I mean, what I loved about So Many Dicks is the headline in itself speaks to what Lisa just said. It's not that there's so many dicks. It's not that there's anything wrong with there being a Richard, Rick, or Dick on the board. The issue is just that there are so few of everyone else. And so when Oberland and our team decided to move forward with the concept, what was most important to us is that it is done in a positive, irreverent, inclusive way that everyone starts to understand, wow, this is really a problem. And this is something that collectively we can all be joined together to change, right? So,
yeah. It was, and I think that was something we really did all agree upon. It really is okay. Like, Dicks can be your greatest allies, right? Men named Dick.
Yeah, there's Rick right there.
True.
Rick, you're the hero, buddy.
Right? It is so important that everyone understand it's not about kicking anyone out. It's about bringing everyone in. And when we do it together, everybody benefits. Richard's benefits, Mary's benefit, everyone benefits. So I think putting it in those terms was very important for both of us. Yeah.
Well, and it's, again, we, woohoo. And then, it's like, awesome. Love this. This is great. I probably, okay. Oh, interesting. So it's building, right? You start building, and then you see the board of directors. And I love this. I love the board 101, right? Because I think that, oh yeah, Billie Jean King.
That's another great story we can talk about. Yeah.
We have a finite amount of time, Lisa.
But I think for the Billie Jean King piece, that was important. That's before we launched So Many Dicks. What was very important to us is that we are committed, E.L.F. Beauty, to making a difference. And so Oberland and us worked together to have different chapters that this is building on each other, that it's going to continue to build on each other. So what you're looking at right now is chapter 1 is we wanted to build credibility. And the way we did it is by teaming up with the NACD to sponsor 20 candidates through their Accelerate program. And so there are 20 incredible leaders who are women and diverse who are going through their Accelerate program right now, who will hopefully be the next wave of board members. So that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 is we worked with Billie Jean King last year, and when she started to learn more about us and our commitment to equality and changing the board game, she wanted to be part of it. And so chapter 2 was serving the facts, and that Oberland helped us create as well, this lighthearted, fun, eye-catching, Billie Jean King literally serving facts to in a non-diverse board is kind of the videos that you'll see. If you
Figure 24
you,
on.
Okay, we'll share it in there.
You'll share them. I mean, it's
great,
fun, but it's impactful, and I think it started to raise awareness for this. This is an issue. This is something that not many companies are talking about, but it's something that needs to change. And then chapter 3 was so many dicks, and the chapters will continue because it is something that we, again, until we start changing the stats, we are committed long term.
Yeah, and so going down here, I love that, because and Melinda, maybe you can speak to this, is that a lot of times a brand would look at me like, oh, we can't put other brands on there. We can't, oh my, I love the fact that you just like, yep, there's Danone, there's Apple, there's all these, there's Volvo. So I love the fact that and again, that's the spirit of inclusivity here.
I think
you're not shying away from any of that.
Right. I think what's important to E.L.F. is that we do not see ourselves on an island by ourselves. We want as many people and companies and community members as possible to come along with us for this journey.
Yep. I love the 101. Yeah, this is just smart, sharp. There's our hero, Rick. Yeah. I love that. I love the inspiration. Okay, so I guess the other question is, in your mind, what you just sort of piqued my curiosity there, Melinda. What's the next chapter there?
You're going to have to stay tuned. I'm not going to release it on this podcast, but you will be one of the first to know.
Oh, no. No, get coverage in Adweek or Ad Age or the Wall Street Journal before me.
You will all.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is like, because like the out of home, running through the Oculus, like it just everything was so smart and sharp. And again, I go back to this thing where it could be this thing that people pass by and it's like, oh, that's funny. But I'm curious about whatever you're comfortable sharing, some of the data points that you've seen thus far that have been, I mean, obviously we can talk about impressions and all that stuff, but I'd like to just think about some of these other impact KPIs that you've been likely exceeding here.
I think for us, what we feel best about, and yes, we got billions of media impressions, and it certainly made an impact in terms of reach, but the virality and the positive sentiment from our community is what we are really proud of. We have almost at this point 100% positive sentiment to so many dicks. And if you comb through the comments on our social channels and on LinkedIn and other platforms, there are hundreds of comments that talk about how not only do they love E.L.F. as a company, but for our values, and how this was one of our community members' favorite initiatives from E.L.F. and how E.L.F. really is changing the game. And for us as a company that is purpose driven before results led, this is really impacting and changing perception of we're not just a beauty company. We ultimately are doing things that change the greater good.
Yeah. And what I'll say just real quick, Lisa, is never underestimate the importance of the qualitative. Everybody's so focused on quantitative. I get it. But the qualitative is where the juice comes from.
And
right, Lisa, you got the last word.
I was going to talk about the qualitative and a bit of the quantitative, but the other really cool thing about the response that we got is where it came from. It came from an entire spectrum. So you had business publications, you had your Forbes and your Fortunes, talking about this really and really embracing it and having the conversation. You had beauty and fashion publications talk about it and embracing the conversation. And then you had things like Hype Bay and Girl Boss saying how much they loved it. So when you talk about, about affecting a market, it affected every part of the market because it was something everyone could get behind. And the Harris poll just came out. I think it was Monday, maybe. I mean, it just came out.
Yeah, last
and
week.
they talked about how powerful this campaign has been. And then I think by 5 points, women started talking about the campaign in these incredibly positive notes. I think they were visionary and dependable became 2 words women started to associate with E.L.F. And even in demographics that were slightly older than what E.L.F. is used to. So it's growing the market and it's growing people's affinity for what E.L.F. stands for. So qualitative, quantitative, I'd say that's a little bit of both, but it really is amazing how it is stretching across communities and across culture in a way that a lot of people are embracing.
Well, I can tell you this: I'll probably see both of you before this. But I'm looking forward to seeing you in Cannes next year. Yeah. I'm just saying. I've been around a minute.
We're listening. Yeah,
I've been around a minute. I'm looking forward to seeing E.L.F. on the Croisette. Looking forward to seeing Oberland on the Croisette, carrying around a little hardware. I've been around. No, seriously. In all seriousness, I will see you in Cannes. But I'm looking forward to the next chapter on this. And Lisa, as always, a great pleasure. Nice to see you not joining us from the inside of a car this time.
Inside of a car with people telling me to be quiet.
No, it's fine. It was very, very entertaining. Melinda, a great pleasure meeting you.
You as well.
To both of you, just such deep respect. And I'm half Italian, so Corey, maybe I'm a little bit partial, but there you go. But listen, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to have you hang out backstage for a sec. But this is great, and looking forward to seeing what's next.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank
All right, hold on one sec backstage for me. All right, everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Awesome stuff. Awesome brand, awesome agency. Thank you so much, Oberland, for your support of Indie Agency News, and all of you for your support of Indie Agency News, especially our members. On behalf of all of us at Indie Agency News, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.